As I'm sure most of you probably know, Donald Trump recently carried out a strike against Iran without any congressional approval. And the main objective of this strike was to completely annihilate their nuclear capabilities. And instead of waiting for the intelligence to come in, instead of getting an on-the-ground assessment to actually see what type of damage was done, Donald Trump decided that he wanted to get out in front of it, just like he does with everything else. And he claimed that this was the greatest strike of all time, that we completely obliterated Iran's nuclear capabilities. But now we've got new intelligence, even from the Pentagon's own intelligence department, saying that maybe this strike wasn't as effective as Donald Trump wished it would be. And because Donald Trump's version of reality does not comport with the facts on the ground, he is really struggling through trying to get everybody to live in his own reality. And the most embarrassing part about the clips I'm going to show you today is that he is now at a NATO summit trying to litigate this issue in front of the world. Here he is, even admitting that we really don't know the extent of the damage so far, but he goes on later to say that, of course, we completely annihilated everything. If you guys do appreciate my work, please do remember to subscribe.
Mr. President, what's your reaction to the intelligence reports saying that the Iranian nuclear sites were only partially devastated, not entirely?
Yeah, well, they said it was actually, the report said it could have been they don't know. I mean, they did a report. I could have Pete talk to it because his department did the report. They really don't know. I think Israel's going to be telling us very soon because Bibi is going to have people involved in that whole situation. We hear it was obliteration. It was a virtual obliteration.
So here you have Donald Trump saying, well, Pete's department, they carried out this intelligence assessment. We got the information back. It is a preliminary report. So obviously further data could come in that would maybe shape this story a little differently. But here he is admitting that we don't really know exactly the extent of the damage. The Pentagon's intelligence department, they issued a report and they're saying that maybe this wasn't as successful as Donald Trump has made it out to be. But then he just goes and undermines all of that by saying, well, we think it's obliterated. We think it's a virtual obliteration. So you can see that Donald Trump is really struggling to live in both worlds. It's not really possible for him. So then he goes on the attack against the mainstream media once again.
So it's just fake news by CNN, which has got no ratings. It's a failed network. Anybody here from CNN, by the way? Because you're really disgraceful network. MSNBC, I think, is actually worse. But they're all pretty bad. But yours is good, Katie, I'll tell you.
Mr. President,
You know what Marco reminded me? He did such a nice job there. It was 9 years ago I had to debate this guy. He was not easy. I think he even got better. But when you were into your little thing, I said, this is when I had to debate this guy. You think it's easy to debate? It's not easy.
Yeah, so Donald Trump wants to get all over CNN, call them fake news, call them the worst names under the sun, all because they looked at the same intelligence assessment that Donald Trump was issued by the Pentagon, and they said, hey, we don't really know the full extent of the damage so far. Maybe it doesn't look like we completely annihilated their program, as Donald Trump once claimed. But instead of, like I said, working with the facts on the ground, Donald Trump has to go on the attack because he is a petulant man-child, and anything that is contrary to his conspiracy worldview is thought of as an attack against him. And so now we've got him attacking CNN, MSNBC, he's going after the New York Times, all because they are reporting the facts on the ground as we know them right now. And I want to go ahead and show you this next clip because this is kind of interesting. He goes on to talk about how we dropped a nuke on Japan in World War II, and I think this really gives us some insight into how he thought his strike on Iran would actually resonate with the world.
But had we not succeeded with that hit ended the war. That hit ended the war. I don't want to use an example of Hiroshima. I don't want to use an example of Nagasaki. But that was essentially the same thing. That ended that war. This ended that with the war. If we didn't take that out, they'd be fighting right now.
I mean, this is quite telling, is it not? Donald Trump thinks he is the master of all masters. He is the best in all worlds. He is the genius commanding a military. And he wants that level of recognition. He wants that level of fame. He wants to be celebrated by everybody around the world. And now he is bringing up us nuking Japan in World War II and trying to compare the strike on Iran to that bomb in World War II. It makes absolutely no sense. And in no way were these things comparable in the slightest. But Donald Trump wants the recognition as though he was back in World War II and he was the one who stopped the war in its tracks because we nuked entire cities into oblivion. That is what we are seeing here, and I thought it was quite telling that Donald Trump is just coming out and pretty much admitting it. Here he is again, going after the mainstream media, calling them scum.
If the Iranians do rebuild, would the United States...
If they rebuild?
Would the United States strike again? And I have also
Sure.
a question about
But
Russia.
I'm not going to have to worry about that. It's gone for years. Very tough to rebuild because the whole thing has collapsed. In other words, inside, it's all collapsed. Nobody can get in to see it because it's collapsed. You can't go in to see a room that has, 10 million tons of rock in it. And the tunnels are totally collapsed.
But if they rebuild...
Well, they've already looked at the tunnels. This was an unbelievable hit by genius pilots and genius people in the military, and they're not being given credit for it because we have scum that's in this group, and not all of you are. You had some great reporters, but you have scum. CNN is scum. MSDNC is scum. The New York Times is scum. They're bad people. They're sick.
I mean, this is just an absolute disgrace that Donald Trump is doing this on the world stage. And I want to go ahead and make one thing clear, because he continues to say that somehow CNN and MSNBC and the New York Times, they're somehow trying to demean our military. But that is not the case at all. All we are saying is that the strike doesn't appear to be as successful as Donald Trump claimed it would be. The military, they carried out the plans, the mission to precision. They did an excellent job. It was quite impressive how they diverted B-2 bombers one way and one went the other way, and then they got to meet up in the air with other fighter aircraft, and they kind of ushered them through into Iranian airspace. The mission was executed pretty much flawlessly. It is not the military's fault that the bunker bombs did not penetrate down into the ground as much as we may have hoped. But Donald Trump is trying to conflate these two things. And you'll notice that he's also going on here trying to say, well, the whole facility is collapsed. Donald Trump doesn't know that. We just don't know that yet. But here he is trying to reinforce his own conspiracy to sell his version of the narrative. It's just absolutely insane that this is the president of the United States. He can't even agree with his own intelligence assessments. So then he is asked, well, so is the intelligence wrong, or what are we kind of missing here?
And both you and Secretary Rubio and Hegseth mentioned the leak. But can you clarify, is the intelligence correct or is the intelligence wrong?
Well, the intelligence was very inconclusive. The intelligence says we don't know. It could have been very severe. That's what the intelligence says. So I guess that's correct. But I think we can take that we don't know. It was very severe. It was obliteration. And you'd think that a media outlet would say, isn't that a great thing? I mean,
Donald Trump just doesn't know what the media exists for. He wants all of these different agencies to praise him day in and day out. That is not what the mainstream media is for. That is not what the free press is all about. And you'll notice here, he's saying, well, okay, well, the intelligence assessment, they said they didn't really know at this time. We're not going to know for a while, but I know it was complete obliteration. He doesn't really want to come out and say that the Pentagon's intelligence is wrong, but he also wants to continue forward with this narrative that it was complete annihilation. He got himself into this mess. If he didn't come out hours after the strike and claim this was a total success, complete victory, we wouldn't be having these arguments here today. So instead of being able to focus on how successful the mission actually was, we're having this fight with Donald Trump because he decided to spin his own version of reality before we had any of the facts coming in. I mean, it's all so avoidable. But because Donald Trump is such a malignant narcissist that he has to be praised for everything under the sun at all times, he puts himself into these types of situations. Now, I want to go ahead and show you this one last clip here because it wasn't all bad at this NATO summit, or this particular press conference, I should say, because Donald Trump did recognize that he was there to support NATO. And I think that this is a solid win. Here he is being asked about Article 5.
Mr. President, you said you would clarify your stance on Article 5 just yesterday. Is that something you can explain
I stand
today?
with it. That's why I'm here. If I didn't stand with it, I wouldn't be here.
So you would defend countries even
Well, what
if they don't
did I
pay
just
out their
say?
fair
Yes,
share?
of course. Why would I be here? Thank you very much, everybody.
Now, I know this is kind of like bog standard stuff, but coming from Donald Trump, this is something to celebrate. You guys remember on the campaign trail? He was going on and on and on about how he was going to withdraw from NATO. He was going to screw over the other NATO countries. He was going on and on and on about this. So to hear him come to the NATO summit, he's in front of the press. He's saying, yeah, I'm committing to NATO. Why would I come here if I wasn't committed to NATO? So I think this is a win that we should celebrate, and I think we should continue to nudge Donald Trump into this direction because it is the right direction. And he also, I believe, he kind of, motivated the other NATO countries or the NATO members to up their spending from 2% to 5% by 2035. And so we can celebrate that as a win for Donald Trump maybe as well. But I think at the very least, we need to acknowledge that he's not talking about pulling out of NATO right now. He's not talking about screwing over other NATO countries. Maybe Spain could be set aside, and we'll talk about that in a different video. But this is a win for the United States. NATO is a strong relationship between member countries, and it is something that we should continue into perpetuity because it has brought so much peace about the world. So it's not all bad, but here we have Donald Trump still crashing out because his version of reality just does not align with the facts that we are currently seeing on the ground. Was the mission carried out in the way that it was supposed to be carried out by the military? Absolutely. Was it as successful as Donald Trump claimed that it was the few hours after it happened? It doesn't appear that it was that successful, that they completely annihilated the nuclear program. But like I said, it's still early assessment. So we could get new facts that would shape this story a little bit differently. So we're just going to have to wait and see as we find out more information about the strike and the damage that it did. And then we can kind of reevaluate from there and see where Iran's nuclear program actually stands. So I will leave it there for now, guys. If you guys got anything out of this video, please do remember to smash that like button and subscribe. Maybe share with a friend or two. I'd very much appreciate that. We are trying to build something here on the left that adequately pushes back against the right-wing media ecosystem that just launders all of this terrible behavior for Donald Trump day in and day out. So if you do like what I do here, please remember to smash that subscribe button. Of course, that is free. And if you guys want to see the beginning of this crash out yesterday when he went on a rampage against the press to their faces, go ahead and watch that video on the screen now. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on the next one.